What's up, guys? This video is going to recap our Valentine project, which is based on a real project where the NHS is selling flowers. You put $5, you put your name and ID, the recipient's name and ID, and then I wrote a program that'll look up the person, find where they are, get the room, print a little ticket, and make the delivery nice and simple. In this project, I've given you some fake orders. So when we do a Google form, the results come something like this with info in columns, and it's a CSV type format with the little separator character between the cells of each row. And then the school is just where we can look people up. Again, this is fake, but ID, name, and then some room numbers that look kind of like room numbers. Now, what do we got to do? We got to take the data in, do some work on it, and spit out an output, just like any program ever. So let's say I'm going to go open a file, and since I'm going to do it twice, I'm going to put a variable name, and then we'll fill that in. As F is just the classic, when you have a file, just call it F. And then we'll say, okay, the top one is special. The top line is the headings, and then we use those to see what things mean. So we'll treat that uniquely, and then all the others are the same. So this is two lines, two things. Heading and the rest, you know. I'm going to go next F, which is a way to peel off just one line, dot strip, just in case it has some ugly spaces or tabs or new line characters, and then split on the pipe, which is between all the cells. Sometimes you have commas, semicolons, whatever. I just thought this was visually nicer. And then we say, okay, the other lines are going to do the same thing. We're going to return a list of, we can break it up into little baby lines if we want, line, dot, that stuff, because we're doing the same thing, but we zip with the headings, and we turn that into a dictionary. So every line is a little dictionary that says ID is this, name is this, first period is this, and so on. Or on the other file, ID is this, name is this, other ID. And then we do that for line in F. So that's really one line, but I stretched it into two just because it looks okay. Now, I'm going to put that applied to both. So why don't we make it a function? Let's say def read data, file name, and then we indent these guys. And then we can say, okay, orders equals read data of orders.txt, and then let's print one. The first and last are the most likely to go wrong, so let's do the last, see what happens. And if I've done it right, we get an object. Yeah, it looks fine. Let's do it for the other one. We'll just call it school because that's what the file's called. And we'll try to print one of those to see. Yep, looks fine. So since we're about to put some more, I'm going to wrap this up in a main function and be prepared to have a couple other functions to do the steps. Find, generate a little output, write it to a file, you know? Let's go ahead and full screen that bad boy. So what are we going to do? We're going to say, for each one, we find the person. So I'll go room equals find. I'm just making up a name. It doesn't exist yet. But let's say find by ID. Order. Should we give him the whole thing or just give him the name? Let's just give him the name. What's it called? It's called recipient name is the attribute we want. And we'll give them the whole thing to look through, right? No, not name, ID. We're searching by ID first because it's guaranteed to be unique. And okay, fine, we might have to do the name as a backup plan if there wasn't an ID. This is how it works in real life. Everybody knows their own, but you may not know the ID of the recipient, and so we might have to use the name as a backup. Plus, even if they do give us the ID, I double check it, because they could make a typo. But we're not going to put that in here. name. No, why do I keep putting name? It's ID. So let's just do a classic for loop. We could find nicer ways, quicker ways, but this is fine. If student, what's it called? Student ID equals that, then we found them, okay? So, see how it goes. That, I said room, I called this thing room, but it's obviously not the room, it's the whole person, so we gotta change the name, and then we'll extract the room from it in a minute. You'll also see that some of these are none because we didn't have an ID for them, and we can't use that. But it's fine, we'll do most of it, and then add in the little cherry on top. So let's say, I'm gonna call that recipient, because it doesn't really make sense to call it room. Just making sure. And then let's say I want to make a little ticket. Our whole goal is to make a little ticket that's going to say like, deliver to Bob in room X, please. Single quote, because we're going to use double quotes. In newer versions of Python, you don't have to worry about this, but now if we're going to have quotes inside of quotes, it's a whole thing. So let's say deliver to is that right? I don't know. Let's do the ticket for each one. We might get an error on some of those. Yeah. So some of them worked. Well, some of them worked until we hit one that we hadn't found, and then it's like, wait, we've got a none, and then we tried to find the name of the none in the room of the none. That's not happening. Okay, fine. But we see that the flow works. We do the thing, find the thing, make a ticket, right? The flow works, we just have to make it more bulletproof. So let's do that. Okay. As a backup, we find by name. Guess what? It's the same darn thing, so we'll just copy paste. Name. Name. Okay. Is that what they call them? Full name? Yeah. Okay. So again, we can make it a lot nicer, but let's just do 2 for loops. It's not the end of the world. And the way we do this is really cool. I like to say it, find by ID or find by name. So what you do is you just give it the logical or, which takes the first thing unless it can't, and then it takes the second thing. So I'm going to put parentheses to break this into lines, but it's really one line. Okay. Find by name. Order recipient name, and of course in real life we have to worry about typos and uppercase and all that stuff, but here it's bulletproof, it's fine. Okay, so now let's try that. It should have that error fixed. Hey look, we found them all. Not really, but we're getting closer, because some of them have a blank room. Some of them have a blank room where, hey, we tried to look up their first period and they don't have one. Often in real life, people do an internship or they go to another school or whatever for part of the day, so this mimics that. So, okay, fine. We're going to need to handle one extra bit. We're going to need to say, okay, the generate ticket has to handle, hey, what if they didn't have a first? Okay. And then we'll do the tickets as their own separate thing. Let's say tickets equals that for, I'm just going to shorten it to R because I feel like it. Okay, R is the recipient because I don't want to type recipient in recipients. And then we'll print tickets. We'll do like that dot join ticket. So this should be exactly the same, but it's ready to be fixed for the next one. But oh my gosh, I never even made recipients. Okay, so recipients equals that for order in orders, right? What do you think? Beautiful. Okay, so now we can say, I've got this idea of looking at the recipient and seeing, do they have a first? If so, we'll take it. If not, we won't. And when we tried this in class, it was pretty annoying to triple mention everything. We'd have to say, if there's a first period, use the first period and call it first period. If there's a second, use the second and call the second. And that was like 6 lines of repetition. So I showed a better way, which is to use the lovely match statement in Python. So you say match their first and their second, and then we say if it fits a certain pattern, we do it. Let me show you. And this method involves no repeating. In fact, it's shorter than the thing we're doing. So we say case, meaning one of the possible outcomes, one of the cases. What if it's blank and then a room? Okay, finally we get to use the room name that I've been trying to make happen. And in that case, we can just say room. Incredible. And then we'll say in P2 to say that it's during second period. Okay. And then we can say case room, meaning now room is the first one, and the second one doesn't matter, so we call it underscore. And then we do this exact same thing, except CodeHS doesn't know it's supposed to indent there. Come on, guys. Okay, let's try that. Incredible. We've got the ones, the twos, they're all filled in, there's no blank. Everyone's found at a certain time in a certain place. But if we're delivering these, we want to sort them. We don't want to go to a room and then 5 minutes later have to go to the same room again. So let's do one little bit of sorting and then we'll be done. I'm going to say, hey, let's write these to a file as well. So let's do that real quick because it's just one line. Let's say output, which is just a thing I made up. It doesn't exist. But when you write to a file, it'll just make it. So we go F, and then we say, instead of print, we just say write. But it's the same thing. So let's try that, make sure it works, and then we'll do the sorting a little bit, which is not even a new line. We just change what we have. Yep, looks great. Okay, so we're not doing tickets. We're doing sorted tickets according to what? Well, we want to put the place together, like if we have 5 rooms, or 5 flowers to the same room, we want to do them all at once. And then we also probably want to do the times together, like we don't want to put a second period at the beginning of the list because it doesn't happen until later. But I don't have a good name for that, so I'm going to call it organize. And then we'll make a little baby function, and then we'll be done. And what does it take? It takes a ticket. And what does it do? I know this is kind of silly. Okay, we should make a ticket object that has properties, and we look at the properties and we do stuff. But right now, I'm just going to take the last 3 words. Okay, because the last 3 words, actually, let's make this say during, because it looks weird to say in and then in again, because it's like in time, in place. So let's do that. Let's say room during period equals ticket dot split last 3 words, and then we want to do period room. So what that means is all the P1s, then all the P2s. Inside of those, we do it by room, if I typed it right. But now there's a problem, which is we don't really have any output. except for the bad kind. Let's put like print done, just to say, hey, when I click run, I don't have to wait like an idiot and see if more's coming. It'll tell me. Ah, okay. Output, unbelievable, we got it. And there's an extra benefit which we hadn't even planned for, but it comes anyway. When you sort by the rooms, you get the same room bundled. Like, hey, we're going to this room, let's do it all in once, instead of going there and then having to come back later. But you also get similar rooms nearby. So if you're delivering, you might take 10 flowers and do a couple here, a couple next door, a couple next door. And so that's not intended. We managed to get even more than we wanted. Great. That should be the way it works in real life. How much code was that? A lot of comments, and then less than 50 lines, including a lot of blanks, and including a lot of stuff that could have been shorter, like this is really one line, but I stretched it out. These functions could be one line each, but I made like the classic for loop instead of a weird generator thing. This really should be the way it is. This, yeah, sure, why not? And this stuff, yeah, no problem. I really like this program because it's kind of like real life, but easier. In real life, we have a few extra problems of typos, accent marks. What if somebody fills it out and then they fill out another form because they want to fix an error and they want to tell us to throw out the first one, stuff like that. But in here, we've done a nice, idealized version. Thanks.